I have
I gotta
thoughts. I'm
leave
going to
that
go
to
first
you.
just because I have thoughts.
You live
So the
there.
whole time we were in Paris, and Courtney, you should jump on the talkback or something if you agree with this. We spent a lot of time on the Paris Metro because that's a great way to get around. The Paris Metro is also great, and it's not all that expensive. You can buy a multi-day pass and all that jazz. It was super crowded because that's the way you get around Paris, unless you know have special access to car lanes and all this jazz. Um, but it worked generally really, really well. Sometimes there were long walks on the end of a metro ride to get to the stadium that you needed to be at, whatever. But generally speaking, worked really well. Los Angeles, as I think everybody listening to this podcast knows, does not have a great mass transit system. It's better than it used to be, but it's not great. So now apparently the city of Los Angeles is going to lease 3,000 buses and dedicate highway bus lanes so that people can get around. Um, I don't know how well that's going to work. I really don't.
Every time I go to Los Angeles, I really struggle to sort of understand how people live in the space,
Hmm. Hmm.
because it feels like it takes so long to get everywhere and everything is so spread out and so far away. And I know that everybody kind of adapts to the space that they're in, and then you just sort of it becomes your rhythm of life. But
Yep.
like, and I know that there's definitely super commuters in DC as well, but yeah, I really struggle with it. And I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna go visit my friend who lives in Beverly Hills and I'm in downtown LA. Oh, that's 40 minutes
There,
away.
there,
What?
there are people who won't date who live on the east side who won't date somebody who lives on the west side. I think it's gonna be really
Well,
hard. I
I
think it's gonna be
should
really hard.
say there are people who live in DC that refuse to date folks in Virginia or Maryland,
Well,
and
that's true.
and
That's
it's
true.
like
Yeah.
crossing the river is like a thing
Right.
here. And
Right.
so
Right.
I feel like everybody puts these weird, like arbitrary lines on
Yeah.
dating, but it is what
So
it is.
while
All
I
right,
want
what's the
Los
next one?
Angeles to succeed, I'm not sure they will. That's what I'm saying. All right, next one.
Oh,
Let's
I
go.
should give I'm gonna just go along with Kai and say half empty because I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Speaking of big cities, both Indonesia and Egypt are working
Oh
toward
yeah.
relocating their capitals. Are you half full
Yeah.
or half empty?
So I remember when they made the announcement about New Cairo. It was quite people were excited, but it was also quite the scandal because Cairo is obviously an ancient city. It's got a lot of culture, it's got a
Right.
lot of emotional
Right.
needs, but the city's infrastructure was crumbling, and just the pressure and the weight of the lack of investment in the city. And I think says something when the city is so hard to maintain and the infrastructure is just impossible that you decide to relocate it. Indonesia is relocating its capital because their capital is sinking. And I think those are two very different things. And so I understand Indonesia relocating its capital because climate change. Egypt relocating its capital, I don't know, emotionally, just because I have like all these memories of Cairo, I don't like that. So I'm gonna have to split that one.
Yeah, that's fair. And I hadn't realized that actually Indonesia's capital was sinking. I hadn't realized. But just so I will let other countries obviously do what they want to do for whatever reasons. I would be opposed to relocating our capital, even though DC is kind of swampy, I think. But, you know,
Can we be a
so,
state though, man? Taxation without
well,
representation.
I hear you. I'm in favor of it. But you go see the Senate of the United States. How about that? How
Okay, what's the
about that?
next
All right,
one?
Drew.
Okay, with the bipartisan infrastructure law investing billions in passenger rail, are you half full or half empty on long distance Amtrak trips?
Story on Marketplace the other day by Kaylee Wells, the introduction to which pointed out that some enormous percentage, like way more than half and plus, that is spent on Amtrak federal funding dollars in the Northeast corridor. But that makes sense because that's where all the traffic is. Out west, a very small fraction of the money gets spent, but a teeny tiny fraction of the rail traffic gets spent. That's number one. That's some context. Number two is that my mother lives in Portland, Oregon. She's afraid to fly, and she takes an Amtrak train from Portland to LA. It takes 36 hours. for her to get down here.
36 hours?
30, maybe it's 33, but a better part of a day and a half to get down here, which is just ridiculous. Just ridiculous.
Yikes.
That's it.
Our tax is getting big, by the way. There you go.
Your
There's the
tax is
cat.
getting big? Oh, our tax, the cat.
Our tax.
Yeah, I heard him.
The cat.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you meant OURTAX, and I'm like, are we getting taxes now? What? They are gonna.
You know, that's funny. Everybody thinks I'm saying that when I say the name,
Yeah.
which makes sense
Yeah.
because I have covered a lot of tax policy, but no.
There you go.
I am going to be half full on long distance train rides. I find them like
Yep.
romantic in like a nostalgic kind of way. Not that
Oh.
I have nostalgia for it, but I like the idea of it. And I definitely prefer taking the train up to New York than flying when I can. If I could take a fast train to St. Louis, even if it were
Totally.
like it takes me 2 hours to like 2 hours to fly back to St. Louis, but a total of probably 6 or 7 when you factor in like getting to the airport and getting checked in and waiting for the flight and all that other stuff. And if, I could get to St. Louis in a 6-hour train ride, I'd definitely do that.
Totally. One more for my European vacation. We took a train from Lyon to Paris. It went 265 kilometers an hour, so 120-ish miles an hour.
I
And it
love
took like
that you
2
did
hours.
that math
Bing,
in
bang,
your
boom.
head.
It was amazing. It was so great. It was so great. It's actually probably like 140 miles an hour. But anyway, it was amazing. It was great. It was so cool. European trains.
All right, what's the next one?
Last topic, no polls, so you don't have to vamp. Are you half
yeah.
full or half empty on using generative AI to write your resume?
Empty.
Oh, really? Oh, that was
Empty.
pretty quick. Discuss.
It was empty. The environmental impact for the use, for one, and AI is already reading our resumes, and that's making the job hiring process worse. I don't mind using generative AI to like help jazz it up a bit, but like this wholesale of putting stuff in to not write it yourself, I'm gonna say no. And I don't know, this stuff, maybe I'm not great at writing prompts, but the stuff that I've kind of gotten out of AI for creative purposes, that's not true. The cocktails have been fine. But when it comes to like, yes, that's creative too. But when it comes to like,
totally.
writing content, I don't know. I'm torn between not loving it because it makes me feel bad. Like, remember all
Yeah.
the stories I did about mermaids when the Little Mermaid came out
Yes,
and like the
yes.
mermaid industry? So I put into ChatGPT, write a story in the style of Marketplace about the mermaid industry. And it sounded disturbingly like what I did. And I just didn't like it. I didn't like
That's
it.
Yeah. I have not dabbled really with ChatGPT or any of those, so I'm not entirely qualified to discuss this. I don't actually have a problem with it as a first whack at something, but we need a human in there. That's my take.
I have to say,
I
this
got.
cocktail's quite delicious. I will
It
definitely
is.
be making
You
this
are
one
drinking
again.
at a faster pace than you usually do. Let me just point out.
Well, it's also got less alcohol density than
Per
most of
volume,
my
yeah.
cocktails. Yeah,
You
so,
getting up
but
at 3? You're getting up at 3 tomorrow to do C-SPAN?
I am not getting up at 3 a.m. tomorrow.
Boom, babe.
so
Well, pour yourself another
there
one,
it is.
party.
Exactly.
Pour yourself another one. All right. We are done. Back on Monday. Till then, send us your comments, questions, suggestions. 508 UB Smart. You can email us. Jesus, Kai. Make me smart at marketplace.org.
Make Me Smart is produced by Courtney Bergseeker. Today's episode was engineered by Charlton Thorpe.
Emily McCune, Jamila Huxtable, and Antoinette Brock are the team behind our Friday game. Marissa Cabrera is our senior producer. Bridget Bodner is the director of podcast. Francesca Levy is the executive director of digital and on demand. I don't know what Neil Scarborough does around here if he's not in the Friday credits.
It doesn't exist.
I have yet to be chastised for this, so one assumes he's not listening till the end.